So I'm Dr. John Whitlock. I'm an assistant professor here at Mount Aloysius College, and I'm a paleontologist. And what that means for me is that I study the behavior, the evolution, and the interactions of other things with, in particular, a group of dinosaurs called sauropod dinosaurs. And these are the dinosaurs, the long necks, the long tails. And they're interesting to me because they got very, very large. They were the largest animals to ever walk the earth, actually. And they did so with little tiny little heads and little tiny little teeth, and they ate a bunch of plants. And that's really not the most calorie-rich way to go, right? I mean, people want to lose weight, right? They eat salads, right? And so understanding kind of how they managed to do that and how they worked that whole sort of gigantic lifestyle on basically salad has been kind of an interesting topic for me. So the neat part about that is that we have, 100 million years of evolution to study with those animals. We've got all kinds of different aspects that we can look at. I've looked at everything from tooth wear, which can tell you how fast they were wearing their teeth, but also, if we look at it the right way, it can also tell us literally what their last few meals were. Which has been kind of an interesting discussion to have with other people and to kind of develop that as a field. It also branches out in the sense that we can have lots of room for smaller projects and student projects. And one of my favorite things to do here, actually, with the paleontology aspect of my life, is that I can work with students at the Carnegie Museum to do some of those small projects. And they actually turn out to be pretty cool things. For example, here I've got a couple of what look like actually not very nice fossils. They're rib bones from a dinosaur called Apatosaurus, probably Apatosaurus. And they would have been collected and they would have been kind of tossed in a drawer and left alone for a long time. But what we can do with these kind of scrappy little things is we can actually take parts of them and cut them down very, very thin, put them on a slide, and look at them under a microscope. And when we look at them under a microscope, we can look at the pattern of bone growth. And in doing so, just like looking at the rings in a tree, we can tell how old, to a certain approximation anyway, how old this animal was when it died. And for this particular fossil, that's an interesting question because it was a juvenile, right? And so by knowing how big an animal was at a certain age, okay, we can get a better handle on how they grew. We have relatives of this thing that were fully grown and we know how large they were. And if we can say if this thing was 3 years old or 4 years old or 5 years old when it died, we know roughly how big that would have been. And it allows us to kind of understand how they got so massive. Did they grow very fast? Did they grow very slowly over a length of time? Those kinds of questions. And again, we can use not the prettiest thing in the world, but they can tell us an awful lot about the life of that animal. We've also got some things. This is an example of what we call a trace fossil. Okay, this is a little impression of sauropod dinosaur skin. So we actually have the little scale pattern here. We know roughly where it was on the body. It was up near the shoulder. And again, something that is this kind of small and maybe not the most impressive thing in the world. But again, it tells us an awful lot about the life of the animal. We know, based on scale patterns like this, we can tell, whether they were really worried about defense, whether they were at a certain size, defense was no longer an issue, and they simply had scales like other reptiles would have. We can look at some of these dinosaurs, not this one in particular, but some of these dinosaurs also had, potentially had large bony plates in their skin. Okay, so we can look at things like that. And this is all stuff that we can learn from things that you wouldn't necessarily see on exhibit in a museum, but they can tell us an awful lot about the life of the animals themselves. And that really, to me, is the most interesting part. You go out and you find the nice fossils and you put them in a museum, and that's fun. But getting a handle on the life maybe of an individual from some of this stuff is kind of the really neat part to me.